Good morning, everybody. This is Gary Matheny. Hope everyone is well today. Today is part 3 of the endorsements here in the state of Missouri. You can find part 1 and 2 on my YouTube channel, my podcast, which is called Liberty Observatory. Or you can find parts 1 and 2 on my Facebook page. Part 1, I dealt with the bigger offices, so to speak, like governor, attorney general, treasurer, etc. Part 2 dealt with the more local offices, like who's running for state rep. And then part 3 today is dealing with the constitutional amendments. Again, this all relates to the state of Missouri. If you're from some other state, you're certainly welcome to listen, but you're not going to find Constitutional Amendment 1 nor Constitutional Amendment 2 on your state ballot. But everyone in the state of Missouri is going to see Constitutional Amendment 1 and Constitutional Amendment 2. Voting is this coming Tuesday, and so get out there and vote. I used to jokingly say vote early and vote often, and then I realized that it was no joke, because apparently there are people voting early and often, particularly through the states that have mail-in voting. So let's dive right in. Let's go to Constitutional Amendment 1. And it's short. Thank goodness the state of Missouri tries to shorten these amendments. The downside of it is that, you wonder whether you're getting a full picture or not. But anyhow, here's Constitutional Amendment 1. Shall the Missouri Constitution be amended to allow places where individuals, corporations, organizations, and associations provide child care outside the child's home to be exempt from property tax? This is intended to make child care more available, which would support the well-being of children, families, the workforce, and society as a whole. And so basically it's giving all forms of child care providers an opportunity to not pay property taxes. And so basically the downside, which Missouri law requires, and the downside basically is how much does this amendment cost? Because obviously the state is going to get less revenue if a whole bunch of entities avoid property taxes through this exemption. Then it goes on to state, state governmental entities estimate the state's blind pension fund could have annual lost revenue of up to $400,000. Local governments that expect an unknown fiscal impact. Okay, so apparently in the state of Missouri, the blind pension fund is dependent upon property taxes, and if you knock out property taxes for a bunch of these daycare entities, then there's less revenue to be had by the state for that particular fund. Conversely, many or maybe all state county governments in the state of Missouri have income as it relates to property taxes. And so their taxes are going to go down as far as these entities are concerned. And it basically says it's incalculable. A state constitutional amendment can, tell us the loss of state revenue, but they're not going to try and give us estimates on the loss of county revenue. If somebody were to put that together after many, many hours of checking the data, it probably could have been put together, but the state of Missouri is not going to do it. So how would I vote? Or how did I vote on that exemption? I voted for it. I voted for it because I don't like property taxes. If probably of the two, personal property and real estate property taxes, I would say the less favorable to the citizens of Missouri is personal property tax. And I would support any movement to just eliminate personal property taxes. And if they propose eliminating real property taxes, I'd probably be that as well. The deal basically is that many states don't collect various forms of revenue that we take for granted in the state of Missouri. For instance, I believe it's the state of Florida, no personal income tax. How do you like to live in a state where there's no personal income tax? Other states have limited or no sales tax. The limited sales tax might be no sales tax on food and drugs. And so these entities that would suffer from a lack of personal property tax revenue, if they're that important, like your ambulance board or, and some of the other things that are essential to community living, they'll find another tax revenue. I gotta believe that if there's a will, there's a way for essential services. One of the controversies we've had in my county over the last few years had to do with building a new public library. Well, we got a library board and they thought we needed a new library, and lo and behold, we got a new library. And there's tons of hardcover books. And my belief is, and I've been to this library to attend community meetings, is that there are whole aisles of hardcover books that that people don't go down. I'm not talking about that people don't pull a book off a shelf, that there's years that go by that somebody don't pull a particular book off a shelf. I'm talking about people don't even go down some of the aisles. That's because we live in a computer age. In my view, a modern library ought to have computers and ought to have an IT guy and make libraries available via computer, because that's the age we live in, and the age of hardback libraries is over. So if you needed a particular hardcover book, order it on Amazon. It's probably available. So anyhow, what I'm basically saying is that not all these boards and not all these taxing agencies have particular essential functions. And that's how we shouldn't be measuring things, in my opinion. So yes, grant the daycare centers the exemption from property tax. I'm hoping that, particularly as it relates to the personal property tax, that there'll be so many exemptions in that it'll fall down under its own weight, because we don't need it. It's hard to administer, and why should we have it when we have all these other tax handles in the state of Missouri? So vote yes on Constitutional Amendment 1. Now let's move forward to Constitutional number 4. Well, what about number 2 and 3, Gary? Well, 2 and 3 didn't make it to the ballot. I guess they got shot down, either lack of signatures on the petition or some reason or another, it got shot down or withdrawn, whatever. So, Constitutional Amendment 4. Let's read that. Shall the Missouri Constitution be amended to authorize laws passed before December 2026 that increase minimum funding for a police force established by a state board of police commissioners to ensure such police force has additional resources to serve its communities? Next paragraph. This would authorize a law passed in 2022 increasing required funding by the city of Kansas City for police department requests from 20% of general revenue to 25% of general revenue, and increase, now dig this, $38,743,646. And then it goes on to say, no other state or local governmental entities estimate costs or savings. And so I believe in, if you have to have government, have good government. And I don't believe that throwing money at problems is always the answer. I'm not one of these that stand up and yell, defund the police. I believe in the police. I believe in the general notion that they should be adequately funded. My county recently, within the last couple of years, passed Prop P, which it provided additional, I believe it was sales tax revenue for dedicated to law enforcement. And if you ask me whether I see any visual changes in a positive way in law enforcement since then, I'd say no. So let's spend our money well, and let's not do a knee-jerk reaction and vote for everything which tends to support law enforcement. Throwing money at problems has not cured any of the evils in American life, any of the problems. Money well spent can go a long way as long as it's targeted, resourceful, and dedicated for a purpose that makes sense. And so I voted against Constitutional Amendment number 4. It basically just gives the opportunity for greater revenue to be generated for law enforcement without necessarily answering the sacrifice that is made in other city and county governments, because greater revenue is going to law enforcement. And believe me, that throwing money at problems is one of the source of our cultural, political, and other problems in this country. It's just not easy enough to just throw money at it. Gee, if the answer was just to throw money at a problem, with $32 trillion national debt, we ought to be walking around here problem-free. We're not. We're worse off than we were before. We've lost something when we created the welfare state. So basically, that concludes my conversation today, part 3 of the endorsements for the primary that's coming up next week, next Tuesday. And you'll find that on your ballot, fellow Missourians, and vote as you will, but you have my endorsements, and kindly take them under consideration. Thank you.